Hey guys, it's coming another movie for guys. Now this movie reviewing, I was definitely very interested in this movie to say the least. I thought the concept sounded very interesting and things like that. But I didn't really know if I was going to get to see this movie, and finally I have, and that movie is Loving. This is a movie that, like I said, I was very interested in, but I didn't really know if I was going to be able to see this because I knew it was very limited. I don't know how many theaters it came to, but I knew it was a very limited release, and I was definitely interested in, the concept and the people involved with it. But after watching Loving, I have to say that not only is Loving a film that, while I think does have a very interesting concept and very good actors, overall left me very disappointed. I think this is a film that could have been so much more, but unfortunately really left me feeling very emotionally hollow and very disinterested in what's going on. But I'll get into that. But let's get into the plot of Loving, because the plot of this movie is really the thing that drew me into it. The plot is that we have this couple, Richard and Mildred Loving, and they're two very loving, a lot of loving there, but very love. That's really the best way to describe it. They're really a very loving couple who rely on each other a lot and really have done nothing that bad except that they're in an interracial marriage, and they moved to the state of Virginia after getting married, and unfortunately things are marriage is actually outlawed. Their interracial marriage is outlawed there, and they end up going to prison because of this and eventually start a case against it. And that basically is the plot of Loving overall. But let's get into what I really want to talk about this movie, starting off with the cast. Now, the best thing that I can give this movie is the cast. I think the cast overall really did do a great job. That was one of the things I was most looking forward to. And I think overall, they all really gave admirable performances. Let's first talk about Joel Edgerton as Richard Loving. I really loved his acting in this movie. I thought he overall did a really good job as Richard. You could tell this was someone who really cared for Mildred, would do anything for her. He has this really great monologue in the beginning of the movie where he's talking about building a house for her, and it just shows the love he has for her. I thought overall he was very, very good in his performance. I definitely really like what he did here. And then Ruth Negga, who I'm very happy to see is doing more stuff, because I loved her in Preacher, and I'm very happy to see is here as Mildred, kind of with the same type of character, because she has, a South accent and everything, but nowhere near as badass as, I can't think of her name now, but from Preacher, I just can't think of her name right now, but she was really good as well as Mildred Loving. I really did like her, and their chemistry overall I thought definitely was there. You could tell these two really did care for each other. You could tell the love they had, and that really they did nothing wrong. But that's really my main problem in the movie, is that them as characters really are just not that interesting, I have to say. Richard and Mildred Loving are your typical suburban couple who do absolutely nothing wrong and really do absolutely nothing interesting in their life. I mean, sure, Richard is involved in drag racing and likes to fix up cars, and Mildred has a family who's primarily and Mildred's family is black, and they're not exactly supportive of Richard and Mildred, moving to Virginia and everything, and they warn them what's going on. But other than that, I really could not see myself investing much time in these characters or caring about them, and that obviously is a problem when the movie is called Loving, and that's really brings up my main concern with the film overall, is these two characters. I think as actors, they did a really good job. I have nothing wrong with them. I think they both did a really good job. It's just as characters, I really could not find myself getting interested in that. But we'll get more into that when we get into the screenplay. Now, the rest of the cast I thought also did a really good job. I know a lot of people have been giving a lot of beef to Nick Kroll, but for the most part, Nick Kroll was really good in this movie. I really liked him as this lawyer who's trying to help, Mildred and Richard. You could tell he really cared about them. He brings up some very interesting points, and I actually really did like him here. I know a lot of people said that he was very out of place and that he really didn't belong in this movie. And yeah, he does come in very late into the film. I definitely will say that. But when he was there, I really like what he had to do here. I mean, and his role in general, for the most part, is a serious role. Something we really haven't seen Nick Kroll do before. And I like the way he's branching out. To see him in something like Sausage Party, where he plays a character like Deuce, such a racist, foul character that I did find very funny, let me just say. But he is obviously very foul and racist and sexist and all that kind of stuff. But then you have him playing this character of this attorney who doesn't have much experience, but in general really does want to help them. I really like this character overall. I'm happy to see Nick Kroll's doing a lot of stuff, and I really am like what I'm seeing with him. He's a very good actor, and I'm hoping that he continues to do more stuff, because he really is great here. Michael Shannon, I think, really is the one that got the short end of the stick here, because Michael Shannon is the fourth main character in this movie. He's maybe in this movie for about 3 minutes. I mean, he's barely in this thing. He is this Time magazine photographer who comes to their home one night, and that's it. He does nothing else else in the movie. I don't really know why he's billed as a fourth main character. It's kind of perplexing to me as to why. I mean, I get that they obviously want to get tickets that way, and for ticket sales and things like that, and because he's a big star, but in general, he's not in this movie a ton, which really sucked, and you had a very good actor here who's completely underused and just wasted, and that really goes to the rest of the cast of this movie. Very good, but very wasted, and the cast in general I thought was very good. I really have nothing wrong with that, but now let's jump into my main concern with the film involving the directing and the writing. Now, the directing here by Jeff Nichols, I really can't get too mad at him for, because I think for the most part, he really did try to make this a very good film. You could tell he was trying to make this a very profound film with a very good message, and I think his tone overall was very well executed. This isn't really, I'd say, a heartbreaking or tragic film. It's more of a hopeful film. It's supposed to be a film of hope. It's supposed to be a film of triumphance and showing that they can, get through this and rely on each other, and that this couple, their love is the one thing that will help them. I think overall is a very good message, and Jeff Nichols really did do a good job directing it. Then we get to the writing. That is a completely separate issue. The writing in this movie is my main concern with the film, because while I do find the case very interesting, and while I do think that the message of this movie is very good, which essentially really is all about how, two people should be able to love each other, and that it shouldn't matter, who they are, what skin color they are, what ethnicity, they really should love each other, and it's a very relevant and I think accurate message, and a very important message. Unfortunately, aside from that case, we barely focus on the case in the film. The case is maybe 50% of this movie. The rest of this movie are a bunch of dinner conversations, a lot of them trying to move around to get away from the cops and trying to try not to get discovered and everything, and try to keep a low profile, and it's just very, very meandering, and that's the best way to describe this movie. It was very meandering, and I just really could not get into it, I have to say, and it's mainly because of these two characters. Now, I don't think it's really a problem with the writing, I have to say. I think the writer overall did do a good job. I can't think of his name right now. He definitely did do a good job in trying to write the story. The problem is Mildred and Richard Loving as people really were not that interesting, I have to say. They were just your suburban couple, and there's really nothing else to them but that. And that might not be a problem. That might be a very accurate depiction. In fact, this movie to me felt very accurate. It didn't really seem like they added anything in, and that kind of was a problem. I know I usually say, you should try to, be as respectful to the people as possible, but Richard and Mildred Loving are not really around anymore, so it would kind of make sense if maybe they add a little bit of something to their characters just to make the story a little more interesting, but unfortunately, they really did not do that, and I don't know if that's because there really was nothing to tell, but they really could have added just a little bit something more for me to care, because unfortunately, I could not really find myself to care about these two characters, and I have to say that when you have these two characters and they're most of the movie in general ended up being very, very boring, I have to say. I really could not get into this, I have to say. I found it very boring. I found it very slow, and it's unnecessarily slow, too. Like, I really found it way too slow. I think they could have moved it a lot quicker, and it takes about an hour to actually get into the case, and that is half of the movie. The movie's 2 hours, mind you. It takes about an hour to actually get into the whole case, and even when that case comes there, it always feels like an afterthought. It feels like, we're just hearing about the case. We're just getting into the case. The movie really does not focus on the case in the way you want them to. The movie's trying to address all these great messages and is trying to do all these great things, and I think these are messages that are very important and things that definitely are relevant, especially today with the kind of society we live in. But if you don't really focus on them a ton, then there's really no point of doing it in the first place. I really felt like this had some really great potential, but unfortunately it was very slow, and I have to say the other thing that I was very worried about, and is in fact true, the movie is very, very Oscar baity. And I'm not saying it's Oscar baity in the sense where, it's a film that's going to get Oscars and should, and it very much deserves that. No, this movie to me felt like it was begging to get Oscars. It was doing whatever it can to get one, and I know in the November movie preview, when we talked about it, most of my guests thought that it was in fact going to be that way, and I have to say to Adam and Eric and Tony, you guys are absolutely right. This movie is in fact extremely Oscar baity. I found it to be very Oscar baity, very much a film that's trying to get Oscars, and especially a movie that's very forgettable. I'm going to forget about this movie very quickly, and it really does suck because I think we had a lot going for it. Now, I will give this movie a couple things. The cinematography, I think, was very well done. I really did feel like I was in the time period of the 50s. I really did like the way it was presented. I think the costumes were really good. Definitely, they did a really good job with that. There were some great shots on in a farm or on a field, just some really good shots there. Definitely a good job with that. And the other thing I will will give the movie is the score. I thought the score was definitely very good. You had a really nice score here, but again, the scenes that are supposed to be empowering, I really didn't feel much from. I gotta tell you guys, I walked away from this movie feeling very emotionally hollow. I really didn't feel much coming out of it, I have to say, and that's something that really does suck. I wanted to feel more to it, but I really didn't. And the editing really, I think this movie really did not need to be 2 hours. It could have easily been an hour and 40 minutes, even an hour and 30 minutes. There really just wasn't much of a story to tell. Hell, I think her being pregnant was more of a story than than the case. I think that was more of a story, and there's barely anything really going on. It really was very boring, and I really could not find myself to care about this movie, and it really disappointed me because I actually was really looking forward to it. And as you guys know, I'm not the hugest fan of courtroom dramas either, so for me to say the case is the most interesting part of this film really should be a testament to how boring it actually was. Like I said, I really did want to get into these characters, I really did want to get into the story, but at the end of the day, I really could not find myself caring because the movie really did not give us much to work with. I feel like if the movie maybe did change up some of the motivations for the characters, or maybe just anything, or maybe even add to a conflict, there's a really good conflict here started by, by her family and by Mildred's family, and they really did not give it the focus it needed. I feel like most of the focus was pit against, all these dining room scenes, or all this, meandering and so much stalling and things like that, and they really did not give the focus on things that were interesting, and any time they did, it seemed like they brushed over it very quickly, and I feel like if those were given more focus, then this movie could have been maybe something a lot more memorable. So overall, guys, Loving I found to be a very forgettable film. I very much wanted to like it, but in general, really didn't give me much to work with. I think they could have done a lot more with it. I do think that there is some really good stuff about it. The acting's really good. The score, I thought, was very well done. And I think the message they have here is really well done. It's just when you have characters that aren't really that interesting, it's very hard for me to really care. And unfortunately, I am going to give Loving a 3 out of 5 or a C. It has some good elements to it. It had a lot of potential, but unfortunately, not all that potential was realized. There really was not that much of an interesting of a story going on, and in general, I found it to be very, very forgettable. It's very Oscar baity. It's really not something that I think you guys have to see either. Like, if you want to see all the top films that are going to get Oscars, this really is not one to see. You could easily skip it over. I don't really think this is something they're going to hear much about, and that really does suck because I really want to love it, and especially with a concept this good, it's really unfortunate that the movie turned out as boring and as slow as it was. But over, guys, some of you Loving. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Loved your thoughts on it. I really did want to love this movie, but unfortunately, I just didn't. And if you guys love this movie, that's fine. I really have no problem with that. But for me, I really could not find much enjoyment in this. And that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next, which will be for tonight's episode of The Walking Dead. And we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.